That night, I was up about 2:30 a.m. with all of those dancers, black men.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go there.
Man, I felt that one, man.
Yeah.
Pick up my bags, I be free at last. Don't wanna hear another word from my bum past. I graduate to know what's fate and what's a fantasy line. I done walked the wrong path maybe a couple of times. Stepping through, I hope to see windows and green leaves. Freedom of speech, sunshine, rhythm up under my feet. Is it a dream? I check the clock for times like this. People around you can't understand what it means to exist. So make up.
Welcome to Beyond the Book. I want to introduce our first guest. But before I do, everyone who's watching us out on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you do not miss any of our content. Anyone that's on Instagram, please follow so that you can refrain from missing any of our content as well. Now, before I introduce my guest for our illustrious conversation, he attended urban schools through Chicago Public Schools and earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Chicago State University. He then received his Master of Arts in School Leadership from Concordia University. He is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. He is currently a doctoral student at the School of Superintendency at Northern Illinois University. Rashad is an extraordinary educator nearing 20 years of commitment. He has experience at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. He is known for his success in raising student scores in literacy and math, a vibrant leader with exceptional skills in building and sustaining positive relationships, leadership development, and academic rigor. A leader, mentor, father. Ladies and gentlemen, Principal Talley. How you doing, man?
Wow. Who was that? Oh, my goodness.
How you
I'm
doing?
good, man. How are you?
Hey,
Good.
you know what? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
It's
too,
good
man.
to see you. You know, it's been a while because for me, I would just say getting this thing started, you being our first guest,
Yeah.
also on Beyond the Book, and just making sure that we give something for the people, you know, by the people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
sir.
let's just jump right into it. So how did you grow up? You know, what are some things that, you know, that can say, hey, you know what? You know, location, family. I know you're from Chicago.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was born in Nashville, Tennessee. My parents were graduates of Tennessee State University. And so after their marriage and after finishing school, they stayed for a while. And so I was actually born in Nashville, but all of my schooling came through Chicago. So born on the South Side, actually single parent home. My parents split very early, but I was born into a village because it was just me and my mom, my grandparents, and my aunts and uncles, my cousins, my church family. And so everybody took a hand in making sure that I became that guy that you just read about. But for me, it was always about education. My father was still in my life, very instrumental. He was an educator. My entire family from Texas, where my dad is from, they're all educators, principals, superintendents. So it kind of runs through the bloodline. And for me, it was really about a faith foundation as well as education. And with those two, I've really kind of catapulted my life and my career to where I sit today.
Have you always wanted to be an educator, or?
So no, when I did transition to, I can name my schools, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
When I
And
did transition
I'm glad you're keeping it honest on here, brother, because look, I didn't always want to be an educator also. I think that's something that just, you know.
Yeah, we got to put it out there
Yeah.
and talk about the many transitions that one goes through to get to this place. So I wanted to be an engineer. And when I attended Murray Language Academy, they had different languages. I wanted to take German because I wanted to design a Mercedes and BMWs and move out, you know,
Right.
and do all that. So they closed the German program, and then I took Japanese. I thought we'd go to, you know, Honda and Toyota. But no, I did not always want to be an educator. But through my journey, I always found myself around young people. Even when I was a young person, I was an 8th grader who, at the time, my mom was working in social services, and I was tutoring 18 and 19-year-olds in math for their GED in 8th grade. So I've always been around education, always been around young people. And so I started paying attention to these things that were in my life. And I was like, wow, I might want to explore that at least. And when I had an opportunity to kind of talk to some of my village or my church folks, one of the ladies said, you need to maybe go work for the board. And while you figure out your life, you can work there, get some money in your pocket, and figure out what you want to do. And I signed up with a recruiter at that time, and I worked as a teacher assistant in preschool in Inglewood.
How old were you here when you signed up?
I was about 19 or 20 years old. You named Chicago State. I finished at Chicago State, but I started at Northern and got kicked out that first year, just having a good time.
Okay.
Nobody's perfect.
Right.
But I tell my students that as well. Whenever I get around a group of students, I always share my story about perseverance. So through coming home from Northern and having to figure out what I wanted to do, that was one of the things that I did, was to get a job working for CPS, enroll back into Chicago State, which was down the street from my house. And I tell my students and anybody else that's listening, I went to work from 7:45 to 3:45 every day. I went to class from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and sometimes 9 to 1 on Saturdays. And my last semester, I took 18 and 20 hours to finish so that I could get out here and make a difference. And I don't listen to excuses because of how I lived my life. I had to do it, and I had to do it in a certain time.
That's a grind, because a lot of people don't have those safety nets, that we hear about. In regards to going through all that, in regards to, okay, I got my set amount of hours, you still a kid.
Yeah. I was 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
And you find ways to make it work. Your friends and loved ones around you understand what it is you're trying to do. And even if they don't, you set boundaries for that. And then you find ways to enjoy yourself. You find ways to be human again. You find ways to make it all work. And I guess, when people look at me and my wife and family, say, how do you guys do it? Because that's what we've always done. I'm the oldest of my siblings, and so is my wife. And so we've always had things that were going on. So that's how we make it work.
Is it difficult letting friends and family know, okay, this is what I'm doing and I need space to do this?
And when you asked me that, I was thinking back to me being a young person in my teens and 20s. I think I've always been this guy. But and when I hear from my peers and from my loved ones, they say, yeah, we don't bother you because we see how you're moving. And when people see how you're moving, they see that you're intentional, you got your head down, they really don't bother you because they know that what they have to say is probably not as pressing as what you got going on.
Right. That's friends and family. That's a tough one. As a teacher inside of a classroom, let's say, okay, I'm inside of a classroom. Let's say I'm just starting out.
Okay.
Just graduated with my degree, let's say bachelor's in early education or even elementary education. What are some teaching methodologies that I would say that you would want to express and say, hey, you know what? You need to make sure you do these things to be a valuable teacher, to be a leader, maybe someday if you're looking for it down the line, to be the best example for your students and also staff.
So I think back to when I was a teacher. Brand new teachers, brand new educators don't know how to manage their time, because it's like that whole day is yours, whether you have the little 6-year-olds all day or whether you're transitioning 5th and 6th graders in middle school every 50 minutes. So learning how to manage your time, I think in that classroom is just one of the things that a fledgling teacher would want to focus on, but also establishing relationships in that building, because I learned that you cannot do that job by yourself. So there's a technical piece about managing your classroom, managing time, lesson plans, all of that. But then there's a social piece as well, and learning how to listen, learning how to gain and garner support from the other folks in the building who've been doing this for a while and they see you falling out the bottom and you need support. So I think and learning how to balance that as well, learning how to balance the technical pieces of the job, but also the social and relational aspect.
Yeah, that's the social aspect, because I don't want to get ahead of myself. I do have a question, but I'll stay on the timeline. If I'm a student getting through high school, I understand that you briefly mentioned high school, and you also mentioned having the open-mindedness to shift gears when you needed to and see, okay, you know what? This can possibly work out for me versus being an engineer. If I'm a student getting through high school, what are some things? Because high school wasn't the best time for me. I don't know about you. It wasn't always clarity fulfilled. It wasn't glamorous. If I'm a student trying to get through high school, what are some things I need to remember as I'm going through this high school journey?
It's interesting you mentioned that. My high school experience took a turn when my dad passed away halfway through my sophomore year. So my high school experience wasn't the best either. I graduated with a 2.2 GPA, and I tell my students that as well, but I made it out. So for a high school person, I'm looking at my freshmen, I'm looking at my sophomores who were just a year or two ago running around their campuses for recess. But now we're talking about college, we're talking about military, we're talking about options. So in that question, letting young people know that they do have options and that they don't need to sequester themselves to one or the other. Okay, we know that college is there for you. We know that the military is there for you. We know that the trades is there for you. And all I want to do right now is expose you and give you some exposure to some of those different avenues so that you can see what's available to you based on what you want your life to look like. And having conversations with young people about what they think they like, what kinds of people they are right now in the age of 15 and 16 or however, and then letting them know that they should be able to explore those. And at the end of that, knowing that we want them to lean towards, one for sure. So prioritize them. So helping them understand what that journey can look like and not trying to lock them in like go to college because that's not for everybody.
Yeah, because college has been there's been a lot of different things going on in regards to, okay, is college the best option for me if I'm someone who's a different learner, whether that's auditory or if I have development delay, what are my options? Is college someone for me? Because again, when I was in high school, I thought that college, okay, it may not be the best option, but it's what my parents want me to do. They definitely want me to go get through college, at least those 4 years. Do you think that college is the best option for someone who's looking to be financially free altogether? I know that may be a tough ask, but college is so widespread, and you come out and you have 100,000 to 500,000 in loans.
So you have to think about that in terms of what college costs, what you trying to get out of it. Are you trying to get a degree in psychology, which to make any money, you would have to get a PhD. Are you looking at doing college in liberal studies? So you think about, what am I trying to get out of this? How much investment do I want? Do you need to go to a college that costs $50,000 to $70,000 a year?
Right.
Maybe not. Right. So maybe look for one that's more cost effective or more affordable that you could maybe work and pay out of pocket, or get a loan enough, refund checks, get a loan enough to pay for what you need and to make sure you can live for those 4 years. So, and that's why those conversations with young people are so important, because they don't know the nuances of that. Only someone who works in the financial aid office or has been through that experience can even have that conversation with a young person. And so for me as a principal who, took out loans and went to school and, spent that money on the refund checks and did all of that, I want to make sure that my young people don't make those errors.
Right.
And so having those conversations about what's feasible, to maybe go to a Malcolm X or a Kennedy King first for the first 2 years, especially if you graduate with a 3.0, I think that's still in place. 3.0, free 2-year city college. So making decisions for yourself and then building up a GPA where maybe a 4-year university would look at you because you have this 2-year trajectory that you've already accomplished at a high level.
What does, with that answer in mind, you're a principal, you've seen a lot of students grow, learn, change, develop. You have tons of experience. What does Black excellence look like to you?
Ooh, that is such a great question. I think
because we hit that term.
It's thrown around like love and friendship.
I got to go to college to show some sort of excellence when it comes to being a Black person. And I always feel like sometimes whatever I do is not quite good enough. I just want to be excellent.
And so it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think Black excellence is in the eye of the beholder. But even in that, it's a mindset. What should your journey look like in terms of being the best and having the best and doing the best? That means different to everybody. But when I think of Black excellence, I think of people who understand the journey of Blacks in this country or otherwise, understand the plight of Blacks in this time, 2025, where we are right now.
Okay.
And knowing enough about the world, themselves, and others to learn how to navigate it in an excellent way, so that no matter what table you're at, no matter what room you're in, you always come correct. And when I say that, I mean
that's a loaded statement.
Because that's my life. Is what I'm talking about. Being able to, because sometimes I go to work like this.
Yeah.
I want to just say that.
I mean, you swagged out.
And I appreciate that.
I don't think I think I look okay.
And that's cool because I see
I'm
what
just
you're trying to do.
to come, I'm trying to come correct. All the brothers, hey, I gotta make sure I'm in a suit. Listen.
And with that, speaking of black excellence, now you're in a 5-piece suit, and I came in with the Timbs and the, but it's still excellent. It's still I still thought about the fact that I would be here and people would see me, and so I don't want to show up any kind of way. I'm gonna show up a way. I'm gonna show up my way. But when you think of that excellent, and I'll also mention in this question, and I'll close out, even in my mantra, it's the 3 E's: excellence, effectiveness, and efficiency. I want to do things at a high level. I want to make sure I want to have high impact, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. So if you put black in front of all of that, it means show up, be on time, do what you need to do, don't waste time, make sure you make an impact, have some influence somewhere in your life, and go on about your business. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about what other folks are doing either.
Yeah,
I'm a uplift, I'm a support. I just had an opportunity to have about 14 or 15 of my mentees, whether they're called little brothers, my sons, whoever. I had them all in my house, and we congregated. And I just wanted to thank them for allowing me to be who I was in their life. And we wore all black, and it was all hot and heavy.
I seen it on
Yeah,
IG.
it was catered, it was nice. But I wanted to show them and let them know, yeah, there are other young black men out here like you who are striving for excellence, who are going to school, who are starting their own businesses, who are doing things, starting their families. And so now they have a group thread where they talk, and I just enjoy what I see. Yeah.
Having that, how does it make you feel to have that? Because I don't think it's also talked about enough. And the reason why I wanted to do this podcast was to shine light on people creating for themselves with help and assistance, but putting it on pretty much not themselves, but the people around them as well, to have that sort of accountability when you see me doing good. If I'm a black guy coming in and you see me doing a certain way and I'm bringing you in, I want to make sure that you have that sort of energy that goes compounds, 2, 3, 4 times over. How does that make you feel when you see you have that sort of impact on the youth?
It's very humbling. I will tell you that it takes my breath away, like officially, because like I said, a lot of what I do is for what I want, for my vision, for my life, and for myself. But I see so many other people in my life that are impacted just by me doing what I'm purposed to do. That looks to me like purpose. It looks to me like fulfillment. It looks to me like I got to keep doing it. And that's the blessing that keeps overflowing. When my cup is full, I spill out into others, and other people begin to do the same. And so that's legacy. That's generational excellence, generational wealth. That's all of that. And so when you look at the sum total of one person being able to impact and infect people in that way, it humbles the heck out of me. And I stay close to my prayer life as well as just my spiritual connection to make sure that I don't get the big head, to make sure that I'm humble and continue to set an example for others, but also a balance of walking very confidently in that, being able to walk in a room and command it, being able to ask for what I need and want, and know that I have the backup or the story or the work to say, hey, he deserves to sit here. Saying that to myself, you deserve to be in the space that you're in. You deserve to be blessed. You deserve to have the podcast. You deserve to have the interview. You deserve to have the book written. Like, I have to think about all those things and then be able to share that in a way that's not like I'm talking about myself too much, but let folks know it's okay to live life, be fulfilled, have influence, and be happy and be humble all at the same time. You can do it.
Yeah. What did you think about the Super Bowl performance?
So, that night, I was up about 2:30 a.m. and I said, I've been using AI and ChatGPT a whole lot. I took one of the commentaries from Facebook and I put a little zhuzh in ChatGPT and I asked it to create a middle school and high school lesson plan for all of the comments that were being said about what it was and what it wasn't. And so a lot of the comments were about all of the symbolism and imagery and verbiage that he was giving in that space. And I said, it would be really cool if one of my teachers would like go ahead and teach this week, because there was so much that happened. I think that people really missed it. And, you know, is he the most amazing lyricist of our time? Could be not. But more than that, what was it about his performance that let us know that there is a message that needs to be talked about? Now, for him to put it out there and for people to be wowed or unbothered by it, I like that kind of controversy, because what it does, it awakens everyone, to folks that are paying attention and to folks that are not paying attention. But for me personally, I thought that there was so much that could be learned from that I used AI and sent it out to people. It's like, hey, somebody's going to pick this up. And actually, my wife's a principal too. One of her teachers actually requested access to the document. So it's starting. It's starting.
That's unbelievable. When you told me about it, I was texting you. I said, hey, you know, you mentioned the Super Bowl. I said, hey, you know what? That'd be a great question to ask Talley. And I hadn't seen the Super Bowl halftime show yet. I was putting in some work, and I went back to watch it. And one scene that stuck out to me was when he had the all black car in the beginning, and he had the dancers come out dressed in, like, you know, American flag colors. Now, I want to bounce this off you. To me, it felt like, okay, the American flag, the people, or let's say the American people, let's say black people, a lot of what America is today came from black people. So that's why he had the all black car, blacked out. Then he had the American flag, you know, people coming out, running out. That's something that kind of, you know, and of course, Uncle Sam.
Of course. But that's the one that sticks out to me. And if I'm not mistaken, were all of those dancers black men?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go there.
Okay.
So you got an American flag. You got that is depicted by black males who are dancing, but when they come together, they represent the American flag. The part that really stole my soul was when the flag was split and he was standing between it. Did you miss that?
I missed that.
Go back and look at it. There was a part where they were in the shape of the flag, but it was split in half, and he was standing between it, still kind of rocking his lyrics. And to that meant to me, like, yeah, we created it and we did all of this for America. But I guess it kind of gives me the same symbolism as a meme that says there's like a game board, sort of like Monopoly or Sorry or whatever. And they're black men, and the black men are down and the table is on their backs. And the white men are kind of playing the game. And the saying is, all we have to do to shut this game down is just stand up. That's all we really have to do. If the game that they're playing is on our backs, if we stand up, the game is over. And so that goes back to the whole game over piece, the whole prison piece. They don't call them joysticks anymore. What do they call them? Controllers.
Controllers, yeah.
My son is a game head.
You back in Sega.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm only 28. But yeah, just that whole thing, man. And I think that there's so much that could be learned from that. I think that if those are the kinds of things that we at least put in the history books for dialogue and debate for our young people to decide what they want to believe about it. Because I used to teach history. History is about perception. What corner of the room are you standing in? How do you see this? How do you perceive this playing out? So we could talk about that forever. But yeah, that's just my take on it.
What do you think about Black History Month?
So I think I used to think that it was, you know, cool and okay as a teacher. We kind of celebrate. But as a black man in Chicago, who's nearly 50 years old, I've seen a lot and I've experienced a lot, and I don't necessarily have a thought one way or the other. And maybe it's because of how I grew up. Maybe it's because of how I celebrate my blackness, because it's all the time. I think that it's an opportunity for us to really be reminded of who we are. For those that may not have their blackness threaded through themselves every day of when they wake up and when they lay down. I don't know how they don't, because they look in the mirror every day. But I think that it was a good opportunity when they established it, you know, to kind of give credence to the contributions of blacks in America. But in terms of how we live our lives, and I'm talking about we as a black folk, I think that for us, it's a 366 and a half day job to live that, breathe that, be that. And that's why our show up should always be 100%, because we don't really have a choice.
Yeah. Do you think that a lot of black people take, because you know a whole lot more than me, and just seeing how our history, how things transpired, the different leaders that we had, do you think that some Black people today take for granted what opportunities we've been given?
Yeah, and I think there's, even the Bible says our people perish for a lack of knowledge. I know that many of the young people now, don't even know how many household appliances were invented by African Americans. There's a long list of 100, the mop, the dryer, all of that. And that's just inventions, but we're talking about contributions in government, contributions in entertainment, contributions all over. And we're still having the first Black person ever to do whatever. But how do we make sure, is it left up to the schools? Is it left up to the parents or the grandparents or great-grandparents who are holding this information? We got to be willing to share that with our young people, because if we do not, they won't have anything to anchor them. The only reason that I am anchored the way that I am at the age I am is because I paid attention to the seniors and the elders who were pouring information to me, like the story of how my family came to Chicago. Like, I know that, but I'm telling my kids. I want them to know that story as well, because it'll anchor them in their identity of who they are and where they come from.
Who's had the most significant impact in your life, you feel like?
I would say my parents.
Wow.
First of all, because they split when I was young, and they were still, in proximity for the sake of me. I guess they call it co-parenting now. I saw them as people. I did not see them as my parents, mom and dad. I saw my mother and I saw my father, and I saw how they interacted as individuals and when they had to confer for me. And they showed me that when you have adversity, when you agree to disagree, that you can still be human. Right. That you can still be okay. And I didn't realize that until I was a full adult. I said, that came from me watching. I never saw them argue. They were going back and forth. They were trying to make sure that the best interest decisions that were made on my behalf were for me. And they put themselves aside. And that's how I lived my life. But yeah, the two of them who I am the most of on the inside, really, my father just being a man, teaching me how to drive at 9, like that was unheard of. But he used to always say, let your yay be yay, let your nay be nay. And what I also teach my boys was 2 things a man should always have: good character and good grooming. And I had to give him that before I could give him a hug. He would always see me at the door, whether he was picking me up from school or I was meeting him at Granny's house. Was 2 things a man should always have, he'd ask me. And my story was good character and good grooming. And I try to teach that to every young man that I come in contact with. I don't care where you are. If you talking right and you looking right, you will be able to get into the door and have a seat at the table.
Do you think that plays into how you raise the kids that you have?
It plays into how I raise all them kids that I raised.
Man,
yeah.
you gotta, man, listen, that's that's an interesting way to look at it, because I guess just from the outside looking in, and also growing up in a community that we grew up in, it's like, I don't understand. Number one, it's hard for me to come across people who had both parents in the household.
Okay. Yeah.
Now that's a separate podcast.
Right.
But how did that affect you growing up in seeing, hey, you know what? It's not as prevalent having, being able to at least touch both your parents.
And so because my father was still in my life, but not in the home, it was a balancing act for him with his second family. But I told you, I grew up with both sets of my grandparents. My grandfathers were very instrumental in who I became. My uncles, like there were men, in my family, along with my father. It wasn't like he wasn't there. But I also share that with my young people to say, especially the ones who know that their father exists and they mad at them for being out for a couple of years or being locked up or what. You don't be holding no grudges, man, because tomorrow's not promised. So I'm always having that conversation though, because regardless as to how you feel about whatever, it's still your father. And whatever his excuse or his whatever is, we always have to operate in forgiveness. Somebody forgave me. Now, that doesn't mean y'all got to go out and be all buddy-buddy, but that's your dad, man. And with me losing mine at 15, yeah, I kind of, and we were on the fritz for a hot minute. And that February, before he was killed in a car accident in May, that February, we made amends. And I'm so glad that we did, because how would I be a 15-year-old boy losing my dad? And we, on the outs, Yeah, that wouldn't have gone over well. It was enough just to not have him here anymore. So for any young man or woman who may have a parent that you are out of touch with, I strongly suggest that you think about that, because you didn't ask to come here and maybe they didn't ask to have you, but it is what it is. And let's go ahead and deal with our reality and make sure that we make amends at some level, at whatever level you can handle, to make sure that you can at least have rapport with that parent.
Yeah. How was it? How was your experience meeting the mayor? How was that?
You know what? It was super cool because
it's cool to see two brothers dap it up.
I really wasn't sure how he was going to, if he was just going to be cool, but he was, and he always is. And so I like that level of consistency whenever we're in the same spot. He was actually,
it's Mayor Brandon Johnson, by the way.
Yeah. I was actually at one of the Final Four games. My basketball team, they always got me out after hours. But he was there and stayed for the entire game. And I really appreciated just the humanness of him, knowing what he's up against, knowing that, he has a lot on his plate of carrying this here city. Yeah. So I'm always in prayer for him and thinking about him as a black man, for sure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on AI?
Well, like I said earlier, I use it every day.
Yeah. Now, as a principal school leader, are you against it or for it?
So I want to make sure that any students that feel like they need to use it, that they don't use it as a crutch. But there are ways to use it, just like there are ways to, utilize any resource that you have appropriately, so that it's still your authentic work, but that would mean that an adult would have to necessarily teach that. So there are ways. So I'm working on my dissertation now, and I'm not using it to write. I'm using it to ask clarifying questions if I have something that needs to be in a different place. And so because I've learned how to use it, it's very helpful for me, because I've been trying to finish for the last few years, and I think I actually might, but being able to utilize it in a way that is supportive and not in the place of. Yeah, I think that it can be used to our advantage.
One last thing about AI, I was thinking about how students are using it today, because I'm in a doctoral program now, and a lot of students, are using it for grammatical errors. They may use it to help them make sure that their resources are, well equipped. Some even help them, reconstruct their dialogue for the dissertations. But I also see a lot of the professors getting on them about, okay, make sure that your work is authentically you, like the things that you talked about. Make sure you're not using it as a crutch, and show up in your papers.
Yes.
Which is something that I try to hold myself to as well,
Yeah. And anybody that's in school, like, you've made it this far. Don't be trying to get kicked out because you was cheating.
Yeah, plagiarism. What's one thing that you believe that you manifested, and how did you do it? What's one thing you manifested, and how did you do it?
Probably my family structure, my wife and my kids. My wife and I both are the products of divorced homes, and we are both the oldest of our siblings. So it was either me and us and our mothers, or us and our mothers and children, or, in her instance, her stepdad. So we've always kind of had control, been in charge, having to be busy and do stuff. So we do that very well, but because of the structure of how we grew up, we do life very differently. And I saw that I wanted to have a wife, children, peaceful home, well-behaved, honor roll students. Like, I wanted that for myself. And that's something that I've always wanted, always desired to have, just a nice family structure that people could kind of look at and, on the surface, because we're not perfect, mirror or mimic after. I've always wanted that. I'm not going to lie to you. And with that being my prayer, my life prayer, that's exactly what I have. And I'm not ashamed to say it. God has been really, really good to me and my wife and children. I have a son that's at Morehouse. I have an 8th grader that's about to graduate. Good Lord. And I have a 9-year-old who is a ballerina, dancer, princess, all of those things.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was huge. Family dynamic. I didn't think you were gonna answer with that one, because when I hear about manifestations, the outcome is for a singular, success or profit or benefit. and you're extremely high on your family, you find that as an essential to life and also backed by faith.
That's my wealth. When you talk about being wealthy, like having a healthy family with children who do right, what I want to talk to some other folks about how they can have it too. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
This not gonna be your only time back.
Okay, great.
I got some guests lined up. We're gonna bring you right back, man. We're gonna bring you right back. Tell me this though. I know that you've, a lot of the times when we're talking about a lot of your successes and a lot of different individuals who are in your position as well. They have successes and they run it to people like myself, like you did a few months ago, trying to make do with what they have, even in the realm that we're already in. And also we may see people who have questions about how to get to the next level and what do we need to get to the next level. Sometimes people think it's just a person. Sometimes people also think it's money, or you need to just be in the right room, right place at the right time. What is very challenging or extremely challenging or one of the most challenging experiences you've had, and how did you get through that?
So, are we still talking about education?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I mean, it could be education. It could be beyond the book.
I think for me, and this is something that I really have not shared out loud, just with family and close friends. The time where I was an elementary school principal, and there were folks who believed that I should not have been, and the jungle hoops that I went through to prove that, and saw that it was not going to work well. There were people that were working against me, and I really didn't know how to handle that political framework of the school system and how to navigate those waters. And so I was actually left without a job for a little while because of that. But I think the challenge was to be able to come back from that and sit where I sit today and transition to an assistant principal role where I could work on myself and kind of mend from that hurt, to be able to maneuver and then transition to the high school realm where I always kind of wanted to be. And if you look at me now, it's like you should have been there from the first, But being able to bounce back from what you would call a setback, but it was an actual learning experience for me, because I didn't know everything that I needed to know at that time. But also having people work against you can be kind of troubling, that you kind of realize who you are, who you're not. And then for that to be exposed to other folks and then have to retreat back before you can step forward. But when I stepped forward, I stepped, and with confidence, because I knew that I had worked on myself. I was a first-year principal at the age of 33. Would that have been premature for me? I don't know. But now I sit in that 12 years later, and I'm like, okay, learned a lot from that, participated in some mentorship programs, did some things, went back to school, perfecting my craft in certain areas, because I never wanted that to happen to me again, ever in life. Nobody's ever going to tell me that I'm not good enough to do this work, when all I want to do is save the lives of young people. Okay, so I'll work on it. I'll get it together. Now watch. And that's not arrogance. That's just saying, hey, I got it. You say less. I'm ready.
Were those people from your own community?
No.
Oh, okay.
And the great thing about that journey is that I was able to share it with people who were there at that time, and they saw my growth and saw my development and were able to celebrate me and celebrate with me on the winning side, so to speak. I think that was probably the most rewarding thing, because there were people that did have some faith in me. It was like, oh, he's tripping, he's losing this. But now they get to see what it looks like when you truly know what's going on, and when you truly have a handle on how things work in education, how things work in that space, in order to get things done on your behalf, on the behalf of your school, your children, and always keep a high level of integrity at the same time. I'm gonna just throw that in there for free.
Being resilient is a part of the journey.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your advice for, I would say specifically, you've given a lot of jewels with us sitting here right now, but I want to ask you again, what are some things Black and brown students can do not just to get through life, but progress through life. And I would also add, essentially, what are some things, whether intangible or not, tangible, some things that they would need to get to the next level for sure with whatever they're doing.
So the first thing that I want to say, without speaking about specifics, I want to speak about this specifically. Listen to me trying to be.
right.
Knowing that the journey is part of their learning. A lot of young people now are looking at the next thing and all they want to do is just get to the next thing. And I'm like, you disrespecting that whole, we used to say, don't disrespect the process. We need to start saying that again, because there is a process and there is an experience along point A to point B that you should not miss. There are a lot of things along the way that you will pick up that you just need to have. You got pockets, you just need to have things, because some of them will affect you now and some of them you'll need to pull on later on in life. And so those are kind of building blocks. And so I'll say to young people, don't miss your building blocks. But in terms of things that are tangible, making sure that you're prepared, just aesthetically prepared to learn with a notebook, pencils. We buy them all the time. Making sure that you have a readiness to, note take, ask questions. I do see that young people, more so than I in my time, are not afraid to be transparent and ask and try to, they want to know what's going on. And don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. That's one thing that I teach my students as well as my own children. When you see that there's trouble in the land, raise your hand, ask questions, but come correct, be articulate. Don't be tripping and messing around. Like, come and let's be solutions oriented. And teachers and staff and folks will respect that, because it's like, whoa, this young person has the courage to come and, they got their proposal laid out. All those things make a difference. And then always go back to what your goal is. I always talk about the North Star and what it meant for folks to find their way to freedom or find their way to Jesus, in the manger, wherever we're going. But always keep your goal at the forefront of whatever it is that you're doing. Don't lose sight of that, no matter what's happening, because things are going to happen. You're going to get put by the wayside. You're going to get slowed down. You're going to get sidetracked. Those things are going to happen. But at the end of the day, have a cadence for checking in with yourself. Where am I along this journey? How far do I have to go? How much more do I need? How many more people do I need to support me? Always check in with yourself, whether it's every day, every week, once a month, journal, whatever you need to do to make sure that you are checking in and say, okay, I've done this many things. I promise to make sure I do these 3 to 4 things the next 30 days. Like, you got to be consistent with that. And it takes a while to figure that out. But if you do those things, you'll be closer and closer to your goals each and every day.
Yeah, I would agree. It's tough to also, I think it comes better from someone who is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of our younger people find it better suited to get information or advice from somebody doing better than them, or somebody that's doing better than them. And for me, I found it somewhat counterproductive to not take in advice that could possibly be helpful for me. Coming from you, it'll be taken differently from coming, okay, this is my neighboring teacher. She may have been here a year more than I have. What's she gonna tell me? I've been teaching for 10 years, Right. And not understanding, hey, each year you got a different class. It's a new year, new personnel, things like that. So that understanding your journey, keeping that goal up front, no matter what's going on, no matter what distractions, I think is extremely profound and also necessary, especially for people going through whatever. I guess I'll ask this question. You've been a leader for a school leader for how long?
Is that counting assistant principalship? I do, because yes, it's been since 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Aside from, okay, you say, all right, well, as a principal, I've had my difficulties. Is there anything when you say, hey, you know what? I'm not sure this is for me.
Every day. What are you talking about? It's, I will say this, and I don't even know what your question is, but a lot of times the load is just heavy. And you question, whether you want to do this, whether you should be. Or for me, I've been doing it 23 years. Like, is my time up?
Right.
And you get there, but you have to be honest with yourself about where you are. That's why I was telling the folks, like, check in with yourself. Like, you got to figure out where you are in all of it, because it's a lot of work, and sometimes you can get lost. What was your question? I don't know. I want to.
Yeah. So it was just, you pretty much answered it. You said, is there, for me, I just asked, is there a time when you feel like it wasn't for you? And that's every day. And I also think that's a fair point, because getting into leadership, a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that a lot of people believe, oh, you know what? I could be able to do this because a lot of these adults going to do what I tell them to do. I give a directive, they'll be able to take it. No problem. This person older than me, they'll be able to handle it. They good.
Okay. I think the people aspect of the role is the most challenging, because it takes all of us, custodians, safe passage workers, seekers, TAs, teacher, the clerk, attendance, everybody. It takes everyone to make that building run. And I had and have a vision for my building to run like a well-oiled machine, and I don't have to do anything. And not that I don't have to do my job, but I don't have to be there to make sure that it happens. And we had one day right before Thanksgiving, anytime before a long break, the kids just kind of lose it. I don't care if you're elementary, preschool, high school. They just kind of have the itis to get ready to be at home, or they want to stay. And sometimes home is not as stable as school is. I'll just put that out there too. But we had a full week right before Thanksgiving. The first day, 10 teachers were out. And usually when the teachers are out,
10 teachers going to be out.
It was also flu season, whatever have you. And so we put some structures together for my non-teaching staff to come out of their offices every time the bell rang, to help support the teachers that were standing in the hallways and the deans of security to usher kids in the classroom. Nobody wanted to do after-school detention. Nobody wanted to do that the week before Thanksgiving. Yeah. So we made it through the entire week like that. Now, we had our teachers trickle back in through the week, and on the last day before Thanksgiving, I only had one half of a something fight on the third floor Thursday morning before 9:30. It was crazy. And then that Friday before Thanksgiving, I had 100% teaching staff attendance. And I'm like, whoa. So I told them, y'all messed up because you showed me you could do it. So now this is what we always going to do. But when the systems and structures are in place and the people work the systems and structures, you could roll with this. But then, you have days where folks are out, days where folks, don't feel like working. And it becomes an issue, because it has to work that way in order for kids to be fully serviced and safe and educated.
Man, teachers being out one day?
Mm-hmm, it happens. It happened last week.
Hair gonna catch on fire. Mm-hmm. What you think of my background?
You know what? I was looking at that. And my favorite number is 7.
Yeah, my life path number is 7.
Okay,
so I got the books and microphone.
Yeah, and I love the yes, you can see I love colors. So I'm very inspired by that. So one that I can take home today.
No, hey, you know what? That's coming. You the first guest.
Okay.
I got
shirts or something. Yeah, got you.
Okay, we coming to the end. These are a few questions that I think are extremely important, because it sort of highlights what not only the podcast is about, but also what I feel like life is possibly about. And I want to get people on to talk to as many people as I possibly can. You talked a bit about your school environment. You talked about how you want the systems to run. You spoke about how if people are gone and not present, how things can be filled, and, that collaboration, that care for one another, especially for the end goal. Is that a microcosm of how you believe the world should run or should be? Because a lot of different things that you spoke about can be a hindrance to someone who's trying to establish themselves just in high school. They got a lot of stuff going on at home. If we had helping hands to come across to say, hey, you know what? At all levels, community, I guess, I would say the list goes on in regards to problems. But as far as the solution, the environment itself, do you feel that, hey, you know what, the world will possibly be a better place if we established ourselves and created systems that could work for all versus just a small amount of people?
The answer is yes, but I also think that there are exceptions to those rules, and there's always room for that. And so if you have a foundational structure or system for whatever it is that you're trying to do, then when glitches come up or things that don't necessarily fit into that system, then you have to have a system for responding to that. You know, and everything is not cookie cutter. I don't believe in that. I am not a cookie cutter person. You can probably tell by my personality. I'm really march to the beat of my own everything. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, there are ways to deal with that. And I think that now I get it. Okay, thank you, Narane Garishore. One of my principal friends, she says, you are so adaptive because I learn how to adapt to whatever environment I'm in. So I'm never caught. I'm never rigid. I'm never caught with my pants down. I'm always able to kind of maneuver and figure it out. That's another skill set because people kind of get set in their ways and they, you know, don't understand how to shift and adjust. Because I just keep flowing. I need things to just be at peace 95,000% of the time. If you're not able to have that, then that's where you have the breakdown. Because yep, you got a foundation, you got a framework. But when stuff does not fit inside that, like people who get upset when things don't go their way, like you got to be able to just, yeah. Is that even in your control?
Because it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. That's life. And so, yep, have your foundational structures, have your run of the mill, whatever you do on a routine basis, but be able to have some flexibility in your spirit to be able to maneuver and adjust to whatever else is going on.
One thing I know that you were extremely capable of doing is reinventing yourself. You dived into engineering and say, hey, I could do that. Cool. All right.
And I probably still could.
Man, I had some friends in engineering in college. Now, mind you, this ain't about me. Let me keep going. President's Day.
Oh, tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
I have off. Don't bother me. What?
Okay. Hey, look, I got one question for you.
Yes.
Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
First black man to stepping off.
Yes.
All right. How you feel about him?
So I will say that, first of all, I've never met him personally. I've seen him and been in close proximity. I think that just the pressure of all of that comes with its own set of gray hairs. But I do respect the fact that he was and still is our first black president. I'm really glad that my grandmother got to see that before she passed. She was born in 1925 and was able to see that man become president twice.
Yeah.
And for the amount of weight that carries, I have a high level of respect for him and his wife and family for even embarking to do something like that. Because when you take positions like that, when you take a position like a principal, you are in the limelight. I have people that speak to me in the grocery store. I love you, but I don't know who they are. And it's no fault of mine. It's just in the role that I am in, people know who I am. And so I want to always make sure I'm presenting my best self, always appropriate. So I'm thinking about this black man and all of that, and then some that he may deal with, the ridicule, the tweets, and all of this other kind of stuff. And to be able to stand firm and stand in his beliefs and still be a man of faith and integrity and keep his wife, like all of that. I look at that and I'm like, yep, I want to be doing some of that. But God, give me the grace. See what I'm saying?
No tattoos. Where they find this brother? I have no clue where
he obviously was meant for the job. And so with that, I say, God, give me that kind of grace. Give me that kind of spirit, because in leadership, there is ridicule. You're not going to be able to please everybody. Everybody's not going to always go with what you think is best. Even when you have a team and you're conferring and all of that, it's always going to be some naysayers that don't see the vision.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Your younger self, if you could go back, let's say high school, and tell that young guy something, what would you tell him?
When I see that on social media, I never answer the question. I've never really thought about it, but okay, I'm gonna give it some thought. Give me 3 seconds.
Yeah, we're going to take your time.
What would I say to my younger, like my high school self? Go away to school. I would have gone away right away. I got accepted to Tennessee State. That was the only college that I applied to. Got accepted and didn't go. Reason being, my mother adopted the grandsons of two grandsons of a lady she went to high school with. And I was 17, getting ready to be 18, and those boys were 3 and 5. And I was like, I cannot leave my mother here alone with those children. And so I stayed home, and that's why I started at Chicago State, went to Northern for a year, because I was like, I got to have at least a year of dorm life and figure out what that's about. Then I got my tail sent back home. But I would have totally went away if I had. And it's not a regret that I have, but I just would have done it. And my life probably would have been a whole lot different but I would have had the courage to just do it. And I think more than anything, it wasn't about those boys. I was just scared. I was just scared to leave because that's all I knew. And I was comfortable. I had a great time. Didn't have to pay my mama no rent. I was good. You know what I'm saying? But I think I probably would have said, do that. Yeah.
What's most important to you? Inspiration or discipline?
Inspiration.
Why?
Because for me, my mind goes first, then my body. So if I'm not inspired or thinking about what I need to do and the discipline that I need to do it, it comes from here first. But then my inspiration is personal. I'm not necessarily firstly inspired by external things. It comes from within. It comes from God, my spirit. And so that's what fuels everything that I do. So that's why I said that first.
I have a segment at the end of Beyond the Book. I'll tennis you 7 phrases, right? I'll say a phrase. You tell me what comes to mind. But before I do that, appreciate you coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate what you've given the audience within, 1 hour flies by.
Has it been an hour?
It flies.
I don't even like talking.
Hey, and it's not easy to get you. Also, I'm like, I was telling C, I say, look, this is a busy guy. I hope he come. That's my brother. We talk.
I'm glad you texted me.
I talk on the phone. I swear I talk to this guy on the phone. He good people. I'm like, man, I didn't put on this suit, but being a principal, do you believe that you love what you do?
Oh my God, every day. Even though I'm tired and sometimes I want to give somebody else my keys, I love it. I love being able to, it's 2 parts of my personality, the social aspect for the children and the young people, but also the business aspect and making sure that things operate. I'm always talking about systems and structures to make sure that things operate seamlessly. That is a gift that I have. And so I get to tickle both of my social self and my technical type A, whatever else self. It's the best job for me. It really, really is. And I enjoy it.
I asked you when we first met, I said, doing your job, can you be yourself?
Every day.
I asked you that.
Every day, because I have a lot of fun. And I tell my staff and my students too, I'm not coming here to spend 8 to 9 hours, because that's all you need. If you're spending more than 9 hours a day, principals at your job, come see me. Let's look at your calendar and figure that out. But I'm not going to spend 8 to 9 hours a day and sometimes more and not have a good time. I'm just, what am I doing? Yeah. Like, I don't believe in that at all. Never have.
7 phrases.
All right.
That go beyond the book. Family.
My address, my wife and my 3 kids.
Power.
The show.
The past.
My father.
The present.
My children.
The future.
Their children. Okay.
Man, I felt that one, man.
Yeah.
Last 2. Education.
My larger extended family in Texas.
Life.
Peace.
That's a big one.
I know.
Man, we all long for that, man. And it's like, will peace come from financial freedom? That's at
any level, like wherever I can find peace, I'm going after it, because my soul has to be settled in order for life to even work. Like, I don't do a lot of like talking about people and being in spaces where I don't want to be and being uncomfortable. Like, I'm trying to really, on the second half of my life, half of my stuff is already done, man. So the rest of this has to be real cool, real easy. Life is enough just to live it and be okay. But I want to be happy. I want to be peaceful. So that's what I'm striving and thriving for on a daily basis.
I'm going to get you back on again. When I get 100,000 subscribers, I ain't going to forget
Appreciate
about
it, man.
Hey, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. Very first guest of Beyond the Book. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
All right. We good.
All right, man.
Shake up the head.